Hi there, welcome back. I am going to show you something that one of my clever customers have made, and we did it in a class a very long time ago, but it's always been one of the best things that we ever did. So this is a needle case, and this lady that made it has since passed away, and her husband dropped it into me at our work and said that we could have it for the classroom, which has been really lovely. So Jennifer made this in a class with me, and we did this on the machine that had the embroidery unit, and so she's embroidered here my own needle case, and she's put her initials. And when you open it up, it has got all her hand sewing needles on this side, and you can see we've made them as individual pages so they can come in and out of the book. And this one has got all the hand sewing needles one would ever need, may I say. And then when you come to this side, every single page is for different types of needles. So this is for embroidery needles, all the different sizes. And when you get them and buy them in a packet like this, if you keep them in a box, you've then got to go hunting for that needle. So it's much better to take them out of the box and put them in the corresponding little pieces of wool felt. So that's the embroidery one. Oops, there's one I haven't put in properly. And this one is the universal needles, again all the different sizes, all across here, so a lot of 90s. And ballpoint needles. The different size of ballpoint needles, coordinate needles. Now they're the ones with a very big eye for doing thick thread. Twin needles. Oh, here's a rogue one that's jumped over from the wrong side. So that one is a 4mm. That was going to be a 90 then. So twin needles, the different jean needles, and it's quite fun because it's got the blue and the white, which looks quite fun for the jeans, and the wing needles, which are wing needles for doing hem stitching work, quilting needles for quilting and top stitching needles, titanium needles, metaphor needles, so for metallic thread, when you're using metallic thread you use the metaphor needles, the leather needles. So I'm going to be showing you some leather work later on, and there was no leather needles left in here, so I've just put my new 5-pack of needles in there. And this one are the stretch needles for stretch sewing, and the Microtex needles. Wouldn't really use probably 100, but definitely the 60, 70, 80 and 90. Now the Microtex needles is an interesting needle. They had to develop this needle when fabric came out with microfiber in it, and so microfiber, they found you couldn't sew it with any needles, so they had to develop a new needle called a Microtex needle. And then in the back she's popped in her needle guide, and it tells you what needle you use for certain fabrics. So it's absolutely brilliant. So I think it's a wonderful book. And it's quite a good book for you to make, and it's just being used with these rings that we get from the warehouse stationery. But when you do it, make sure you use these good big studs, because they will last forever. So I often do my stitch book the same as this, but it's a really wonderful needle book, and it's very handy to have in my classroom. Alright, so I thought I'd like to share that with you. I'll pop that one away later, and that one there. I'll just put that on a bit of wool fabric. So when you're going to be making a book, you can actually get an old blanket, and you can cut this into strips, and you can use it to put your needles in. This will stop any needles from going rusty. This fabric I also use when I'm making a little book. Now I have got a little book in here. And this is one that I made a long time ago for my needles and pins, and this is wool felt, but I often just use the natural wool. And then these little ones that I take as my travel one, I don't need to worry about them going rusty if I don't use it for a while. And I've just put on a little pair of scissors as well, and that's my little going away little case. So I just use that when I'm going away, and it's for hand stitching or mending. Right, now today I do want to show you something quite fun. I love Country Calendar, so I'm always watching Country Calendar, and I saw this wonderful idea that you can use for growing seedlings, using for plants, and helping with weed in your garden. So what you do is you can make these little cute little potting bags, and they are made out of pure wool. Now the reason why they have become so popular is because the wool will stop the frost getting into your plant, it will stop bugs getting into your plant, and hence no weeds. So you can have it as a little roll down, and when you put it in the garden you can simply just fold that around, pop it in the garden, and no bugs, weeds or frost will get into your plant. Brilliant. So this whole little pot goes down into the garden, so no more plastic pots. It's brilliant. My sister grows a lot of plants, so I've got some off her to put in the garden, but she grows them all just from cuttings, and now we can have these little beautiful little pot holders. One thing to note, if you're going to give them as a gift, make sure if they're going to water them before they go planting them, it's not in the house, because the water will come out the side of the wool. All right? And the other thing I saw on the program was you can just get pieces of wool, so you can use wadding or old wool blankets, and you simply cut a slit down to the center, and you put this around your plant you've already got, and fold it over, weed it first, beg your pardon, weed around your plant, and then cut it down and fold it round and put it like that, and that becomes a weed mat. This will break down, and this will break down between 5 to 8 weeks into the garden. It's absolutely brilliant. I think it's a great idea. And the other thing they do is they get a bigger piece of wool felt, or wool wadding or wool fabric, and they make it into a tube, and when they're planting their vines like kiwi fruit and grapevines, they simply place this cylinder over top of the plant, and then they put this around the bottom, and that will keep that plant from getting frosted and keep the bugs out. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I'll show you how to make one. So you can do any size. So this is an offcut, so I've just cut it off a quilt that had wool wadding in it, and it had a whole strip down the side, so I thought perfect for making little bags. So all you need, you can have a square or a rectangle, and you simply just sew down one side, and it doesn't matter what width you do, obviously. I'm just going to do the foot width. Oh, one thing you must do, just remembered, I'm going to put my foot up, and I'm going to cut my thread, and I'm going to pull my thread out, because you need 100% cotton thread, because this is going to break down, and you want your thread to break down. You don't want to be putting a polyester thread inside your beautiful 100% wool little pot plant holder that you've made. So I have got all my 100% cotton threads in one of my drawers, and I'm just going to find which drawer that is so that I can show you, and I'll try and find a colour so that you can see it. 100% cotton. So this is 100% cotton thread. You'll notice when you see it that they'll have a different colour around the bottom than other threads. So they've all got slightly different colours, and it will say 100% cotton on the thread. So I'll use this so you can see my stitching. So I need to wind a bobbin of this as well. So you don't have to match up your, there's a hole there somewhere. You don't have to match up your colour as long as it's 100% cotton thread. Now, if I had my thread already threaded, to wind a bobbin on these machines, if it was already threaded up, you simply go into here and you go around here just once, make sure it is around there, give it a little pull, and then you go around your bobbin, just a couple of times, flick your lever across and it will wind nice and evenly. And you can slow it down on the screen of your machine. You can go faster or slower. And you can stop it at any time. So that's possibly enough for what I'm doing today. Then lift it off and cut the thread. Okay? When you're going to thread this, make sure always that your foot is up. And then I always hold it here, make sure it's in there, then come down, around, up and down, and then I let that go and my tension's all nice and tight. Come here to here. Now today I'm using the 790 Pro. So I've got a needle threader, automatic needle threader. So I've just hooked it in beside there and I'm pushing my button and my needle's threaded. So I'm a little bit spoiled because I'm using the latest machine and it's a little bit easier and I don't have to try and use my needle threader because it's automatic. So remember, shiny side down to wind a bobbin, shiny side down into your bobbin case, bring it around, click it, and then make sure when you put it in, this is nice and straight across. It is not vertical, it's horizontal, and then you can just put it in and it'll click in place. Cut the thread and shut the door. Now we're set up because we've got 100% cotton thread on the top, 100% cotton thread in the bobbin. I've just got an 80 needle in, I don't need anything drastic for that. So now you're going to just sew a side seam. You can lock it off at the beginning, lock it off at the end if you like, but remember it's going into the garden. It's not something that needs to be, you don't have to be too fussy about. When I get to the end, remember on these new machines you've got the beautiful cutter, so it's going to cut the thread and lift my foot up and I can pull my work out. Now what I do like to do is I like to put that seam at the back, like that. And I'm now just going to sew across the bottom. So if you want to, you can turn it in the right way afterwards, or you can leave the raw edge out, it makes no difference. I'm going to be turning it through, so I'm just going to sew across the bottom. And if you want to backstitch or you want to knot it off, you can push the knot and it will knot. And then when you get to the end, you can push the knot, or you can set it so it permanently is on and cut with the scissors. Now you must wait for that machine to lift the foot up before you pull the work out. It's really important to let the machine do its cutting job before you move out. Don't be rushing into yanking it out, because if you pull that thread before it's cut, you could damage your cutters because they're quite an intricate little piece of machinery. Now this is what it looks like when you've just cut it like this. Now this is exactly like making a bag, okay? So if I want to put a base in it, like this one, I put a little base in it. I want to get my little ruler out, my little sewing gauge, and my blue pen. By the way, best, I've shown it to you before, best ever container of goodies I've ever made, because it zips up and it's nice and tidy, and I've done some fancy stitches on each end, and then when you open it up you've got this wonderful container with all your goodies in it. Very, very handy. So with the sewing gauge you need to decide how wide your base is. Remember, it's just a plant. I'm going to do 1 inch because I can set this on here so you can see it clearly, and you do not do 1 inch from your raw edge, you do 1 inch from your stitching line. So I'm just going to mark 1 inch, and I'm going to use my water erasable pen, and then I'm going to come across here and I'm going to mark 1 inch here, and I'm going to draw a square. I'm going to turn that over and I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side, and shortly you'll see why. If you do this when you make a bag, it's going to be making your bases of your bags so much easier. And then I'm going to do this side, so 1 inch across and 1 inch down. Turn it over, 1 inch across, so now I have got 1 inch across and 1 inch down, 1 inch across, but also on the other side. Now the reason why this is a good way to do it is when you now fold this, you get a perfect triangle and you don't have to try and draw across that corner, okay? Because you can line up your sides so you get a perfect triangle and you know that this is going to be nice and square. So these are a great way to practice your bases of your bags by making some of these and giving them to friends. So now this is my bottom of my bag. So if I had wanted to have an automatic lock off, I can set my machine. But if you have got a machine where you want to backstitch, you can manually do it with your reverse button. So if I go forwards and reverse, it will automatically do it. But we have something better on the machines. On all the modern machines, you now have a stitch that will automatically go forward and reverse for you. But when you get to the end, you need to push your reverse button to finish it off. So watch this. It's going to go forward and reverse by itself. And when I get to the end, my reverse light's flashing, I push it and it automatically comes and it finishes off and I cut it. I'll show you again on the other end. It's stitch number 5 and I think it's stitch number 5 on most machines. You can open out your seam. So watch again, I'm starting it. So I've got pattern begin, push pattern begin if you need to. Now I'm going to go forward and it's going to automatically go reverse. When I get to the end, I'm going to push the reverse button once and it will finish off my work. Isn't that brilliant? And I use that a lot for dressmaking. And what I love most about it, it's perfect. It goes back into the stitches exactly the same. Now, I honestly don't need to trim these threads or anything. I can now turn this through to the right side if I want. I could leave it raw, doesn't matter. But if I'm giving it for a gift, I'd trim it through. And this one's going to be a cute little skinny one. And I can just put my little potting mix in there or my seedling raising mix, sprinkle a few little seedlings in there, and there I have my little bag. Isn't that the cutest? So cute. So you can make as many of those as you like. This one is an old blanket. So if you wanted to make a whole lot of these and you were clever, you could actually go to the op shops and buy dog 100% wool blankets and you could make them out of that because they're going to be for potting. So it doesn't matter what quality they are as long as they are wool. I said cotton, didn't I? Wool blankets. So this is just a really lovely way of making something to give to somebody or for yourself and you're not using plastic pots. So let's try and help the environment. And this will also help with your bugs, your weeds and your frost. So that's just my little idea for the day. I think it's really, really, really cute and I think it's a really, really nice thing to teach people and it's certainly good for the environment. So there you go. There's my little potting bags. Right, so I will see you shortly and I'm going to show you some leather work.